This is Q News Tonight, the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news, and it's 7 p.m. Tuesday, April 7th, 2020. We are going to queue up breaking Q News by reporting, is Donald Trump's response to COVID-19 just a huge cascading failure? We've prepared a package on this. Watch
John
this.
Meacham, this is a perfect the buck stops here contrast with Donald Trump saying, I am not responsible. And what we could talk about ventilators, we could talk about the the Defense Production Act, we could talk about all the ways that Donald Trump keeps trying to pass the buck, keeps trying to say, I'm not responsible.
The entire LGBT community knows that this is going to be one of the big weeks in a response and the grim reality of COVID-19 and coronavirus. As it relates to the president's response over the last 3 months, there are only two questions now. One is the failures that have happened previous today that began in January. It is being reported today that the White House memo in January reported to the president of the oncoming issues that were going to take place in COVID-19 and coronavirus, and they were ignored. We have already shown you at Q News Tonight all of the countless responses by the president in minimizing the effects that COVID-19 would have on America, and now we're in it. That's issue number one, evaluating what has happened in the first 3 months. Issue number two is the future of what's next. The only thing that's important now is evaluating how we get through this crisis. And those are the fundamental issues that we'll be reporting now going forward in Q News Tonight. Any thoughts about Donald Trump's response to COVID-19?
Unfortunately, this is exactly the kind of response that I think all of America, all of the world could have expected. Donald Trump was going to find a scapegoat to this, and I'm going to report more on that later. And I am very concerned as to how much he's going to blame China with his lack of action that he could have taken 2 months ago, blaming all of that on them.
I think he's brilliant, and I think that his brains are going to shock all of the people watching.
So good evening again, America. It's 7 p.m. Tuesday, April 7th, 2020. It's time to queer up the news. We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your stories next on Q News Tonight. Tonight on the world's first live daily queer evening news show.
Tonight's news about the gay community and the news from an LGBTQ perspective. Are our gay stories important to you? In headlines, politics, entertainment, gay culture, travel, religion, and more. Reported by respected anchors.
Out of the closet and into the headlines on Q News Tonight. America and the entire LGBTQ world, welcome to Q News Tonight. We are live and unscripted, so anything can happen because we're live. Tonight we bring you the news of and a perspective from the LGBT community. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and this is my co-guest anchor, Misty Eyes.
Hi, I can't wait for our good news segment tonight. We've got some good stuff.
Great. And anchor, Napoleon Plays.
Hi, everybody, and a special thank you to everybody in Wisconsin. I hear it was a very difficult time trying to find a way to vote today. Only 5 locations in Milwaukee. Thank you for being good citizens, and thank you for tuning in.
So let's cue up the news. We continue to update you on hosts with Happening Out Television Network. It's Happening Out host Ron Bernetsky is hospitalized, still in ICU. But a little good news, he was briefly conscious today. Some progress. It's Happening Out host and Happening.Fun anchor chef Josie is in quarantine after testing positive for COVID-19. She reports she's feeling better. Also a little good news. Tonight, the Bravo's Top Chef and Top Chef All-Stars star has her eye on life in quarantine. We bring you tonight, Day 9, Chef Josie's Corona Diary. Watch this.
Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Chef Josie from It's Happening Out, and this is day 9 of my Corona diaries. I call this one The Fight. Folks, we're about to enter into 2 weeks of probably the most devastating numbers that we've seen in the U.S. in terms of people losing their lives to the coronavirus. Just this past week, I said goodbye to about 3 more members of our community, and you know, shit's getting real. I wanted to just simply say to you guys, you know, if you get this virus, you know, I know I've been telling everyone not to be stressing out and don't panic and none of that. And I don't want you to panic, but I want you to know something. You must fight, okay? You must fight. If you feel like laying down all day, you got to know that you can't, okay? You got to get up. You have to stay mobile, because this virus wants you to lay down so it can attack your body, fill your lungs with liquid, and basically kill you, okay? This is not so much a silent enemy anymore. The enemy is right here, blatant and ballsy in your face. You guys got to be on top of your daily regimens, your vitamin C's, 2,000 milligrams 3 times a day, knowing that your body can only absorb 2,000 milligrams at a time. You need to be drinking hot liquids. You need to be resting. You need to have, laying on your stomach. You need to have Tylenol so that you can fight off with all your might anything you can do. Fight off the fever. If it shows up, guys, this has to be a proactive action that you're taking, and over the next 2 weeks, you may find yourself in a situation where someone you know has the virus. We can get through it together, but we gotta be tough, guys. We gotta be tough right now. I hope that by sharing my experience with you and just getting real with you about the coronavirus, I hope that it's inspiring you to stay home and also preparing you to take actions in the event that you contract the virus. We can do this. Stay tuned to my Corona Diary.
Well, Chef Josie, everyone has you in our thoughts. During the COVID-19 crisis, Q News Tonight will bring you the day's bullet points on coronavirus, the most important news of the day that we call Corona Quickies. Here are the headlines for Corona Quickies for Tuesday, April 7th, 2020. First up, coronavirus had a record day, a death toll of 1,400 people, nearly 400,000 USA infections, and we're nearing 13,000 deaths. We've prepared a package. Watch this.
Let's go to the U.S. now, and the governor of New York State, Andrew Cuomo, has been delivering his daily briefing, and the news is distressing. He said that they recorded the highest single-day increase in deaths since the outbreak began. 731 people died.
That is the largest single-day increase, and we talk about numbers, but that's 731 people who we lost. Behind every one of those numbers is an individual, is a family, is a mother, is a father, is a sister, is a brother.
For Tuesday, April 7th, at the start of what officials have warned could be the deadliest week of the coronavirus pandemic, the U.S. recorded a grim record today in the last 24 hours, as more than 1,400 Americans have died of COVID-19. This is an astounding 1 person died of coronavirus every minute in the last 24 hours. Approximately 30 Americans will die during this broadcast of Q News Tonight. Nearly 400,000 USA infections are now reported, and the total death toll for the United States is nearly 13,000.
Coronavirus quarantine quickies. Wisconsin primary goes on today, regardless of coronavirus crisis. We've got a video prepared. Watch this.
Despite over 2,500 cases of coronavirus and a 7,000 poll worker shortage, Wisconsin is holding an in-person election today. The governor had attempted to move the election entirely to mail-in ballot, but after two separate state and U.S. Supreme Court rulings on related cases, the election will proceed without any adjustments.
So that includes no solution to resolve the backlog of mail-in ballot requests for residents who don't want to risk infection.
Despite the coronavirus crisis, Wisconsin's controversial election is on today, and voters will get no extension on the deadline to return absentee ballots, thanks to two top courts that sided with Republicans on Monday. Voters wait in lines that stretch blocks. Wisconsin is asking hundreds of thousands of voters to ignore a stay-at-home order in the midst of a pandemic to participate in Tuesday's presidential primary election, becoming a test case for dozens of states struggling to balance with a core pillar of democracy.
Quarantine Quickie. NBC's Kate Snow has firsthand account of taking care of a family suffering from coronavirus. Watch this.
None of us are talking to Chris face to face, even though he's right downstairs.
Welcome to day whatever. Everything's the same in these four walls.
I go down with a mask on. I walk up to the door.
I left you eggs and toast.
We had made a plan that if any of us got sick, we would go to our guest room, which is in the basement.
Every time after I go down there, I wash my hands.
He describes it as massive muscle, not just aches, but pain.
NBC's Kate Snow is now caring for her husband, who has coronavirus. She's posting on what home care is like for an American suffering from coronavirus and the family. Snow said, "I'm nervous," and we don't blame her. Snow reports how she cares for her family members that are in quarantine. Issues about food, sanitation, and isolation are explored as millions of family members are also experiencing the very exact same thing.
Quarantine Quickies. What is Japan, one of the most densely populated countries in the world, not understanding about coronavirus? Watch this.
6日までの1ヶ月間とし、最も重要なことは何よりも国民の皆様の行動変容、つまり行動を変えることです。人との接触機会を最低7割、極力8割削減することができれば、2週間後には感染者の増加をピークアウトさせ、減少に転じさせることができます。
There are images today that people wearing face masks walked to work on Tuesday in Tokyo by the thousands together. Millions of Japanese have not had a quarantine or lockdown order. And today, the Japanese Prime Minister, Shinzo Abe, declared a month-long state of emergency following a very sharp rise in confirmed coronavirus cases. The state of emergency will allow the heads of 6 designated prefectures and Tokyo to do more to reinforce calls for social distancing.
Quarantine Quickies. New York City and other states report that minority coronavirus is dramatically higher than the white counterparts. We've got a video. Watch this.
Tonight, with the rate of infection increasing in cities across America, there are alarming new statistics showing the pandemic is taking an especially heavy toll on minority communities. In Illinois alone, more than 40% of those who have died are African Americans, even though only 15% of the population is Black. Adriana Diaz has more on these disturbing disparities.
In the age of coronavirus, funeral home doors are disinfected, while inside, services are led under a mask.
Death has no respect of age.
African Americans and other minorities may be dying from COVID-19 at a dramatically higher rate. In Chicago, a recent report found that 70% of people who died from COVID-19 are Black, even though the city's population is just 30% Black. In Milwaukee County, which is 27% Black, the figure is 81%. Public health officials tracking the coronavirus have seen similar disproportionate impacts on African Americans in New York, Philadelphia, Detroit, and other major cities. New York Mayor Bill de Blasio said, quote, "This disease is affecting people disproportionately in lower income communities with more health problems and in communities of color."
During the COVID-19 crisis, we are in darkness overload. So we have also, will follow the headlines with coronavirus good news. We report on the very best of America and the world while in pandemic. We call this segment we are now doing Coronavirus Good News for Tuesday, April 7, 2020. Lady Gaga raises $35 million to fight coronavirus and plans an all-star virtual concert. Watch this.
We are all so very grateful to all of the healthcare professionals across the country and around the world who are on the front lines during COVID-19. I'm so thankful to them, and I'm also praying for those who have sick. I would also like to send my prayers as well to people that are losing their jobs and are having a hard time feeding themselves and their children. We are raising money for the World Health Organization's COVID-19 Solidarity Response Fund. I am proud to say that over the past 7 days, we've raised a total of $35 million for the Solidarity Fund. This money will include essential PPE, supplies and testing kits around the world, and will help improve lab capacity to rapidly process tests.
Lady Gaga has raised more than $35 million in the last 7 days and is a major organizer with Global Citizen and the World Health Organization to organize One World Together at Home. This worldwide television and online event will bring most of the world's television, broadcast, and online platforms into one telecast to support the healthcare workers of COVID-19. The broadcast will have celebrities, music stars, and the world's entertainment industry participate. Lady Gaga said today, quote, "This historic first-of-its-kind global broadcast will benefit COVID-19 Response Fund as well as regional and local charities. We need to show unity among our people who are affected by COVID-19 and to celebrate and support brave healthcare workers doing life-saving work on the front lines."
Coronavirus good news. China, the source of coronavirus, has its first day where there are no deaths. Watch this.
China marked a massive milestone on Tuesday. It's seen no new deaths as a result of the new coronavirus. Mainland China also reported a drop in new cases after closing its borders to virtually all foreigners. In the central city of Wuhan, once the epicenter of the outbreak, lockdown measures are finally easing. It's due to allow people to leave the city via road, rail and air on Wednesday.
China has 5 times the population of the USA, but has had a fraction of the number of infections or deaths. But in a sign of hope, China, where the pandemic broke out, recorded no new deaths on today for the first time since it was started reporting coronavirus figures back in January.
Coronavirus good news. Matthew McConaughey cheers up nursing home residents with a rousing game of virtual bingo. Check it out.
We got an I-24, I-24. Oh! Richard Blunt is waving a hammer up high. Well, we got Charles Kings in the iPad up high. We got 2 winners. Look at this, look at that board.
Great.
4th column straight down. Winner. Let's see yours, Charles King's iPad.
Call them out. Call your numbers out.
This is definitely good news. Since seniors have been shown to be particularly susceptible of the risk of COVID-19, nursing homes have been very stringent all around the world, taking extra care to keep their elderly residents safe and in isolation. With few activities to keep them occupied, the old Texan residents from the enclave at Round Rock Senior Living have been waiting out their quarantine in boredom. Luckily, Hollywood A-lister and Texas native Matthew McConaughey offered to help keep them entertained in this video.
Yeah. Coronavirus good news. Harry Potter has been saved from coronavirus, perhaps using the spell expecto patronum. Harry Potter creator and coronavirus patient J.K. Rowling has apparently cast the spell expecto patronum, a Patronus charm of a physical manifestation of one's most positive feelings. But this time, instead of vanquishing the Dementors, her spell expelled coronavirus, the COVID-19. She said on Twitter today that she had been suffering from COVID-19 symptoms, but was now, quote unquote, fully recovered, adding that she had not been officially tested. Every Potter fan can expel a sigh of relief. Good news.
It may feel that the world is in crisis, and that means that now is the time to come together. The LGBT community must come together. We ask you, are LGBT voices important to you? Can the news of the world have a gay community perspective? If you, like us, think the answer is a resounding yes, then like and subscribe to Q News Tonight on YouTube and on Facebook.
Do our gay cultural stories impact you, your friends, or your family? Start a watch party. Get your circle involved in our conversations as it supports the LGBTQ community.
We cue up religion tonight by reporting that ex-Vatican Treasurer Cardinal Pell has been acquitted of sex offenses in Australia. Watch this.
The Vatican welcomes the Australian judicial authorities' decision to acquit Cardinal Pell of the accusations of abuse of minors and to overturn his 6-year prison sentence. The Holy See explains it has always expressed confidence in the Australian judicial authority. It states also that during the process, the Cardinal always maintained his innocence. The Vatican took the opportunity to reaffirm its commitment to preventing and pursuing all cases of abuse against minors.
That's right. This comes to us in the middle of Holy Week. This Sunday is Easter Sunday. Former Vatican Treasurer George Pell was acquitted today after spending 404 days in jail. The 78-year-old cardinal has been accused and served time for sexually assaulting 2 teenage children in the 1990s. Interestingly, though, when he was arrested, he remained a cardinal but lost his role as treasurer. Originally, there were 2 trials. The first was a hung jury, and in 2018, the second voted him unanimously guilty, thus sentencing him to a 6-year sentence on 1 charge of sexual penetration of a child under 16 and 4 charges of indecent act with a child under 16. These charges come from 2 different accusers, one of which died from a drug overdose in 2014. The Vatican welcomed the news of the acquittal and praised Pell for having waited for the truth to be ascertained. In a statement, it said it always had confidence in Australian justice systems and that Pell had always maintained his innocence, and the Holy See affirmed its commitment to preventing and pursuing all cases of abuse against minors.
Q News Tonight is part of the Happening Out television network. We are the Daily News.
We are also part of the most popular live gay TV show in the world, every Wednesday night here at 8 p.m. on It's Happening Out.
It's a talk show like television's The View with a whole lot of gay people, and Misty is going to join Napoleon and I tomorrow night for It's Happening Out, and we can't wait.
Making it a little gayer.
And Christine W. will be here this Wednesday.
Yes, absolutely. We cue up the world by reporting that China joins the United Nations Human Rights Council despite recent records of alleged abuse. Watch this.
China's re-election as a member of the UN Human Rights Council is proof of the recognition from the international community towards the country's improvements in human rights issues and the active role China plays in international human rights communication and cooperation. It also gives China an important platform for further involvement in international cooperation on human rights.
So China has been recommitted to the UN Human Rights Council, which, of course, the U.S. left back in 2018, with our UN representative, Nikki Haley, stating that that group is a mockery of human rights. As we can see coming forward, there's going to be a lot of claims against China that they withheld information about the coronavirus, and that they are now trying to push themselves forward as a public leader, that they were inaccurate in terms of their numbers of deaths, which weakened the alarm and allowed Trump to not act 2 months earlier. I guarantee he's going to say something of that nature. And it also could lead to the U.S. and other governments trying to seize Chinese government property as it is in the U.S. as punishment for what they've done. Trump went on to say it could have been contained to that one area in China where it started, and certainly the world is paying a big price for what they did. I do expect Trump to continue to blame China as a scapegoat. That way, all of his actions, or rather his inactions since January, are not going to be highlighted. Do you guys feel similarly to that?
I have difficulty with this story. I'm glad that they've recommitted to the UN Council. I hope China will be more transparent. but it's very difficult to trust anything that China does. Their economy is in shambles over what has happened on coronavirus, not so much in China, but in the rest of the world. And so they've got a lot of making up to do. We continue by queuing up the world tonight by reporting that a Brazilian trans woman has been gunned down by armed thugs. Misty, tell us about what's going on here.
Last night, a 27-year-old trans woman was brutally shot to death while hanging outside of her apartment complex in Bahia, Brazil. One minute she is drinking with her friends, and the next minute the road is filled with armed gunmen, and they shot her down. Her name was J.F. do Nascimento Martinez. She tried to flee into a building to protect herself, but died shortly after her fatal injuries. Local law enforcement stated that this crime may have been linked to drug trafficking, but cannot find a suspect yet because witnesses are refusing to cooperate with the authorities. In 2019, Brazil criminalized homophobia and transphobia. However, Brazil remains the deadliest country in our world for trans people. Activists have warned us against the president, Jair Bolsonaro, who has done very little to tackle this. In fact, he previously said he himself is a proud homophobe and said he would rather have a dead son than a gay one. Sounds like our leader's not the only one to hate out loud.
I'm so tired of these kind of stories. I continue to point out that the LGBTQ community is under full attack, not only in places like Brazil, but all over the United States. And the focus point of the spear of the attack is on the trans community. Honestly, I'm sick of these stories.
That's absolutely true, but it is important to note that just like in Brazil, it started with transphobia, but now homophobia and transphobia, or homophobia, being homosexual and being trans are both illegal. And that's the path that's going to be taken. It's why it's an LGBT community. We have to stand together or else each of our rights is going to be taken away one by one. We're seeing it now in Brazil. Other countries are going to follow, and I would not expect that to not happen here under Trump's administration.
America Tonight, we are broadcasting from our studio set in the middle of the World AIDS Museum and Education Center here in Wilton Manors and Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We joke, we're coming from the gayest place on planet Earth. We also thank our set designer, Concepto Modern Living, here in Fort Lauderdale for helping us make our beautiful set here in the middle of this living museum possible. We cue up the USA tonight by reporting union provision was slipped into COVID-19 relief bill by the Democrats. Watch this.
Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi unveiled a $2.5 trillion bill addressing a major holdup Democrats have with the Republican relief plan in the Senate.
The Senate Republican bill put corporations first.
As negotiations continue in the Senate, Pelosi is urging the upper chamber to move closer to the values of her bill.
That Take Responsibility for Workers and Families Act, a bill that takes responsibility for the health, wages, and well-being of America's workers.
The Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act passed just recently, which offered $2.2 trillion to help relieve small businesses. Now, in this scenario, businesses are in this qualify for this if they have 500 to 10,000 different employees, and then can no longer speak to their employees about forming a union. This as being potentially in violation of the First Amendment rights, which has the ability for the businesses to speak to their employees. It's interesting to me because this was a joint effort between the Senate minority and majority leaders, both Schumer and Pelosi here. And what's being stated is that it was pushed through. But this impacts all sorts of different businesses. And I have a quotation from the Art and Museum Transparency, which is an activist group of art and museum workers, that states, "This is not the time to back unions into a corner. When workers have nothing left to lose and are facing the prospect of lower or no wages and precarious health care, they will respond with forceful actions like walkouts and strikes." Do you guys think that doing something like this could actually help alleviate some of the tensions that we're experiencing between businesses and the people that work there? Or is this just going to cause more of a problem for the businesses themselves? It's an interesting, rhetorical
I think
or not.
we're in a situation where we don't know yet. There's so much chaos in terms of what's going on in coronavirus and the implementation of this $2.2 trillion stimulus plan. We just really can't answer your question at this point. We continue by queuing up the USA by reporting that a protester has been arrested for planting a pride flag at Coronavirus Hospital in Central Park. Watch this.
And take advantage of our sorrow and take advantage of our troubles now with the coronavirus. They are predators. They're right-wing apocalyptic Christians. We've got to get them out of New York City. Do what you can to make sure. I know that our mayor is upset about it. Do what you can to get those white tents.
On Thursday night's episode, we reported about the COVID-19 makeshift tent hospital in Central Park ran by Samaritan's Purse. We also talked about their anti-LGBTQ ways, so this story comes as no surprise to me today. Yesterday, a gay man named Reverend Billy Talon jumped over the outer perimeter barrier of the Good Samaritan's Purse Field Hospital, a prohibited area, and he was instructed to leave. He refused and proceeded to plant the gay pride flag in a pole in the ground anyway. He was charged with resisting arrest, criminal trespassing, and disorderly conduct. Franklin Graham, Billy Graham's son and founder of Samaritan's Purse, promised that the coronavirus hospital would not discriminate against LGBTQ people. However, a gay man revealed last week that he tried to help and volunteer, but he was barred from the premises because he refused to sign the anti-LGBTQ pledge, and they told him he was going to go to hell for being gay.
It's interesting, these coronavirus times, because we don't just see people trying to do well. We don't just see people doing the best of what they can. We see people expressing a lot of hate. And I think what's most interesting, and I think everyone that's watching can relate to this, is that we're seeing who people really are, whether that be with positive intentions, negative intentions, whether fear is going to reign, or whatever else. And unfortunately, that often means fear is going to be leading to actions like this, which in this case are anti-LGBT.
This story proves the value of Q News tonight. You're not going to see this story on NBC or MSNBC or CNN because they're going to consider the story too small. But it's very important to the LGBT community, and we assure you we'll continue to watch this. Billy Graham's son is running this hospital in New York, in the park, and we are going to continue to follow if they discriminate against LGBT. It seems to indicate that they are going to, but we'll continue to report it, and the importance of Q News tonight. So next we have the big finish. We're close to the end of our show tonight. There are many stories today we only want to mention. Let's see if Misty and Napoleon and I can entertain each other and lighten up today of Tuesday, April 7th, as we have a lightning round of LGBT news of the day and news with an LGBT perspective. So here we go. Q News tonight, the big finish. Our first story in the big finish. DuckTales introduced gay dads as new characters, and the web went quackers.
This is the best story of the night as far as I'm concerned. In this show, each of the dads, just to be clear, wears a shirt that says, "I'm with Dad," and the arrow points to each other. So there can be no confusion. Disney is making a point, and they want people to know these are two gay dads, and it's absolutely fine.
I think this story is brilliant. I'm super happy that the children out there can have, oh my goodness, I have two gay dads, and this is like my family. It's amazing when you see yourself represented in media and in movies.
I once said on It's Happening Out that feathers kind of do something for me. We have really come full circle. Also, not such a fan of Scrooge McDuck, but the asses on the nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, yep, they totally work. The big finish. The Russian space agency says Trump is trying to take control of other planets.
It's very concerning for me because I know as soon as Trump gets his name on the moon, it's going to go bankrupt. And what are we going to do if we don't have waves in the ocean? Is he somebody that we can sue? I don't even know the answer to that. I don't think it's possible to hold up in court.
So there's so many things that pop into my mind. Is he trying to take control of these other planets for his TV show? Is he trying to take control of the other planets for America? Or does he himself want to build a tower on one of these planets?
Yeah, that's right. Trump Tower. I vote for C. Given that Trump can't even take control of his tweets without error, I am sure Russia is going to be just fine. Also, why doesn't Putin and Trump just whip out their dicks now and bring this argument to an end once and for all? By the way, on this subject of whipping it out, I'm still betting on Barack Obama. The big finish. Donald Trump Jr. wants his dad to pardon Joe Exotic just for the meme.
Well, that tells us everything into the clairvoyant lives of Donald Trump. I love Donald Trump Jr. He is basically the id of the children who tells us exactly what's going on in Donald Trump's mind, and he will give us the gateway to this.
If anything matters to Donald Trump Jr., it's a meme. Follow his Instagram, follow his Twitter. That's all he likes. And I don't think that's a reason to exonerate people because it'd be a good picture.
LGBT America and world, can you believe that there is someone worse, more ignorant, and really all around more repulsive than Senior? Yeah, Junior does it. Actually, I think this is really in preparation for the next president pardoning the Don, just for funsies. The big finish. Despite praise from the right, Trump admits he didn't know about the FDA reducing blood ban for gay men.
The log cabin Republicans have gone wild for Trump with this and other LGBT stories. And even though it has been directly stated that Trump has nothing to do with this and he doesn't know what they're talking about, the managing director, Charles Morin, said that he stands by his statement that it was Donald Trump who did this.
Okay, so the last story was Donald Jr. doesn't know anything about anything, and now the Senior doesn't know. But you know what? I kind of believe he doesn't know anything about this, because why would he? If it doesn't affect him in any way, why would he care?
Exactly. Leave it to Trump to be unable to take the free win even on civil liberties. Makes you wonder his decision-making and tweet thought and construction wording on everything else in his life. Happy 66th birthday to Jackie Chan.
I fell in love with Jackie Chan and the Jackie Chan Adventures, which was an incredible cartoon in the early 2000s. In the Chinese zodiac, it is the year of the rat. The rat is associated with the hour before midnight. So I can show you, Trump, we have a lot in common. It's not just the year of the rat, but we're right on the 11th hour of the doomsday clock as well.
Oh, don't say doomsday clock. My thoughts automatically go out to, as a young child, a young queer little child, looking at the screen of a shirtless man kicking things. Happy birthday, Jackie.
Ew.
That was kind of my bike ride earlier today.
Jackie Chan, 2016's second highest paid actor in the world, famously said about his homeland, quote, "But in Hong Kong, China, we don't know how to count. Everything we do is a guess. If you've got the guts, you just do it. All of my stuntmen have gotten hurt," end quote. Wait, was he just talking about action movies or the political and medical response to coronavirus in December 2019 when his government was full of lying and keeping it all secret? On this day in 1948, the World Health Organization is formed by the United Nations.
And of course, that spells out who. And even 70 years later, roughly the same age as Trump, he's still asking who they are and what value they have, since he clearly ignores them on a weekly basis.
But I will say, in 2020, we need the WHO more than ever. I have fact-checked it. When I heard the Advil scandal, like, you might worsen your symptoms, I went straight to WHO to find out why.
I'm loving the WHO.
Tommy is playing in my head right now. The WHO.
It is interesting to think that we have had such an organization for only 72 years. Would the Spanish flu have been better if the world could have come together to fight it? What about the infamous plague? I think we've come farther than we think sometimes. It's just a shame that my government rejected corona tests, denied the science and predictions by and said there are only 15 cases. It's a hoax. It will just go away. It will be like a miracle and just go away. The World Health Organization, can't overcome ego, ignorance, and the Donald Trump. That's today's news for the LGBT community on the world's first daily LGBT evening news show. Remember, if it's important to the LGBT community, it's important to Q News Tonight. but you must help us. Click subscribe on YouTube and share the news with your friends. We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. This is the only source of live LGBTQ news in the entire world. Your community needs your support. And remember, you're not alone. We will get through this pandemic and crisis. We are here with you, and this is Q News Tonight. Thank you for joining us. I'm Al Ferguson, and on behalf of Misty Eyes and Napoleon Plays, we'll see you tomorrow night at 7.